Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of some of the most rare, valuable, and highly sought-after United States Washington quarter-dollar coins. From hidden minting errors to extraordinary auction prices, these small 25-cent coins have shocked collectors with their incredible value. Some ordinary-looking quarters have sold for hundreds, thousands, and even more under the right conditions. Stay with us as we uncover the history, rarity, and true market value of these amazing Washington quarter coins you definitely don't want to miss. First up, the 1990 Washington quarter dollar may look like just another ordinary pocket change coin, but hidden beneath its worn surfaces and everyday appearance lies a fascinating story of history, rarity, and unexpected value. For many collectors, the true excitement of coin hunting comes from discovering that even a heavily circulated quarter can carry extraordinary significance. And today, we are diving deep into one of the most intriguing modern-era quarters in American numismatics, the 1990 Philadelphia Washington quarter. This particular example, showing scratches, visible wear, and natural tunning, may not appear impressive at first glance, but in the world of rare coin collecting, appearance alone never tells the full story. Sometimes, the most valuable treasures are hiding in plain sight. Understand this coin, we need to travel back to the year 1990. America was entering a new decade filled with change and transformation. The Cold War was nearing its historic conclusion, technology was beginning to reshape daily life, and the United States economy was navigating a period of uncertainty mixed with opportunity. It was a time when millions of Americans still handled coins daily in cash transactions, rarely stopping to consider the history resting in their hands. Quarters were everywhere, used in vending machines, parking meters, laundromats, and everyday purchases. While most people spent them without a second thought, collectors understood that each coin had a story, and some stories would prove far more valuable than anyone imagined. The Washington Quarter series itself holds a special place in American coin history. First introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, the series quickly became one of the most recognized and collected coin programs in the United States. The coin's obverse design was created by John Flanagan, whose portrait of George Washington became one of the most iconic images in U.S. coinage. By 1990, the Washington Quarter had already become deeply woven into American culture. Collectors valued the series not only for its historical importance, but also for its wide range of rare varieties, striking errors, and high-grade condition rarities that continue to attract serious attention. The design of the 1990 Washington Quarter remains classic and instantly recognizable. On the obverse, George Washington's profile face is left with liberty positioned above, "In God We Trust" to the side, and the date 1990 below. The reverse features a majestic eagle with wings spread, perched over a bundle of arrows and framed by olive branches. United States of America arches across the top, with quarter dollar displayed below. The design reflects both strength and peace, themes that resonated strongly with American identity. Even after decades of circulation, the artistry of this design continues to stand out, especially when preserved with original surfaces and attractive tunning. The Philadelphia Mint produced an enormous number of Washington quarters in 1990, with official mintage reaching approximately 613 million coins. At first glance, that number makes the coin seem common and ordinary. However, experienced collectors know that mintage numbers alone never determine rarity. Millions of coins may be produced, but survival in desirable condition is a completely different story. Most 1990 quarters entered circulation immediately and endured years of heavy use. They were scratched, worn down, exposed to environmental damage, and often cleaned improperly. As a result, finding examples with exceptional strike quality, clean surfaces, and original mint luster has become much more difficult than raw production numbers suggest. This is where survival rate becomes critical. A large percentage of 1990 quarters remain in circulated grades such as fine or very fine, often showing moderate wear and numerous contact marks. Coins in about uncirculated condition are scarcer, and true mint state examples with strong luster and minimal distractions are far more difficult to locate than many collectors expect. Strike quality also plays a major role. Many 1990 Philadelphia quarters were struck with less than perfect pressure, resulting in weaker details in Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers. Coins showing sharp strikes, especially with fully detailed design elements, often command substantial premiums among advanced collectors. Now this brings us to the real excitement: rare varieties and mint eras. While the standard 1990 Philadelphia quarter is widely available, era coins and variety coins can transform an ordinary quarter into a highly sought-after collectible. Collectors have reported off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, broad strikes, and dramatic double-die examples from this year. These minting errors occur during the production process when something goes wrong in die creation, planchet preparation, or striking alignment. A double die, for example, can happen during hubbing when the die receives misaligned impressions, creating visible doubling on letters or design details. Off-center strikes occur when the blank planchet is improperly seated during striking. Even small production anomalies can create major collector demand. Some of the most valuable 1990 quarters are circulated examples that became extraordinary solely because of rare mint errors. Imagine finding a worn quarter in loose change, only to discover it has a dramatic off-center strike or a bold double die visible under magnification. This is exactly why coin roll hunting remains so popular. A scratched and toned coin that looks damaged to most people might actually attract significant attention if it carries a legitimate mint error. Authentication is crucial because true mint errors must be distinguished from post-mint damage caused by circulation or abuse. This difference often determines whether a coin is worth face value or hundreds, even thousands of dollars. Surface preservation is another major factor in determining value. Collectors place strong emphasis on originality. Natural tunning, which develops gradually over time through exposure to air and storage conditions, can add visual appeal and sometimes increase desirability. Beautiful golden, blue, or rainbow tunning often attracts premium bids, especially when evenly distributed. However, cleaning can significantly reduce value by removing original surfaces and creating unnatural brightness or hairline scratches. In the case of a scratched and toned 1990 quarter, the value depends heavily on whether the scratches are circulation-related and whether the tunning is natural and attractive. Professional grading services play an important role here, helping confirm authenticity, originality, and overall condition. In terms of market value, most circulated 1990 Philadelphia Washington quarters in scratched condition trade close to face value, typically between 25 cents and $2, depending on eye appeal and originality. Better preserved examples in very fine or about uncirculated condition may reach $3 to $15. Standard mint state examples often trade between $20 and $80, depending on grade and strike quality. High-end certified examples in elite grades, such as MS-67 or MS-68, can command hundreds and sometimes thousands in competitive markets. If the coin features a dramatic and authenticated mint error, values can rise significantly, often ranging from $100 to several $1,000s, depending on rarity, visibility, and collector demand. Auction records reveal just how powerful grade rarity and registry competition can be. Exceptional 1990 Washington quarters certified in top population grades have sold for impressive premiums at major auctions. The highest prices are typically achieved by coins with flawless surfaces, razor-sharp strikes, vibrant original luster, and elite certification. Registry set competition pushes these prices even higher. Collectors building top-ranked registry sets compete fiercely for the finest known examples, sometimes paying astonishing amounts for a coin that appears ordinary to non-collectors. Provenance can also add value, especially if the coin comes from a famous collection or notable auction pedigree. The story of the 1990 Washington quarter proves a powerful truth in coin collecting. Even a small $quarter coin, worth only 25 cents in everyday commerce, can become a highly valuable collectible under extraordinary circumstances. Rare varieties, striking errors, exceptional preservation, and intense collector demand can transform an overlooked piece of change into a remarkable numismatic treasure. So the next time you spot a scratched or torn 1990 Washington quarter in your pocket, do not dismiss it too quickly. Hidden within its worn surfaces may be a story of rarity, history, and surprising value that could make it far more special than anyone expects. And secondly, imagine stumbling upon a relic from the early 1980s, a time when the United States was navigating a painful recession, unemployment was high, and the nation was glued to the news following the assassination attempt on President Reagan. It was an era of economic anxiety, and every penny counted. Yet amidst the struggle, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia was producing a staggering 500 million coins, specifically the 1982 P Washington quarter, turning out 500,931,000 of them, a number so vast it seems to defy logic. It was money that passed through countless hands, buying gas, newspapers, and coffee, seemingly too common to ever be special. But as we will see, it is often the most overlooked and circulated coins that hold the most astonishing secrets, transforming pocket change into a treasure that can command tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is the story of a coin that, despite its humble origins, is a numismatic enigma of epic proportions. The portrait on the obverse of your quarter is the iconic work of sculptor John Flanagan, whose design for the Washington quarter was introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Flanagan's design, inspired by a bust of Washington by the French sculptor Jean-Antoine Houdon, depicts the first president in a dignified, classical style, facing left with a stern but resolute gaze. The design was a break from the previous Barber coinage and immediately resonated with the American public. On the reverse, a majestic heraldic eagle stands with wings fully extended, clutching a bundle of arrows in its talons, a symbol of the nation's readiness for defense, while an olive branch rests nearby, representing the desire for peace. This classic design, a testament to American strength and resilience, remained largely unchanged for the 1982 issue, but as we shall discover, the true story of this coin lies not in its intended design, but in the subtle and sometimes dramatic deviations from it. While the mintage of over 500 million for the 1982 P quarter is staggering, it is critical to understand that rarity in coin collecting is rarely determined by initial production numbers alone. The true measure of a coin's scarcity is its survival rate, especially in high grades and the presence of significant mint errors. The sheer volume of these coins meant that most were released directly into circulation, where they were worn down, scratched, and heavily toned. As the years passed, a vast majority of them were lost, spent, or eventually melted down, leaving a relatively small number in well-preserved, uncirculated condition for modern collectors to find. What truly separates a mundane 25-cent piece from a coveted treasure is the condition, and most importantly, the existence of a remarkable error that makes it a unique anomaly of the minting process. This brings us to the heart of the matter, the specific 1982 P Washington quarter we are discussing, a coin that is not valuable because it is old, but because it is flawed in a way that is extraordinarily rare. The most famous and valuable variety is a coin that is missing its most defining feature, the P mint mark. Normally, the Philadelphia mint mark, a small p, can be found on the obverse to the right of Washington's hair ribbon. However, a small number of dies were accidentally sent into production without being punched with the P mint mark. The result is the 1982 P no P mint mark quarter, a significant error that causes the coin's value to skyrocket. Imagine holding a coin that the government intended to mark, but which slipped through the cracks, an unmarked messenger from a massive federal operation. But the error story goes even deeper. The 1982 P quarter is also known for a master die doubling. This is a unique anomaly where the doubling occurs not on a single working die, but on the master hub itself, which is used to create all working dies for that year. This means that all 1982 quarters, whether from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, possess this doubling to some degree, typically visible as extra thickness and a spread towards the center on the words, "In God We Trust." While this is a fascinating technical detail, its universal nature makes it more of a die characteristic than a valuable variety. However, it demonstrates the complexity and the human fallibility at the heart of the minting process, which is where true errors are born. To understand how these errors occur, we must visualize the minting process. A die is created by impressing a steel cylinder with a hub, and multiple blows are needed to bring up the fine detail. If the die is not perfectly repositioned in the hubbing press between these blows, or if a different hub is used, the result is a doubled die, where the design elements appear doubled. This is different from machine doubling or strike doubling, a mechanical error caused by the die having some give or sideways movement during impact, creating a flat shelf-like appearance that is generally not collectible. Adding to this, mint marks were hand-punched into each working die. A single misalignment or a second punch to deepen the mark could result in a repunched mint mark, RPM, where two different impressions of the letter are visible. The 1982 P, no P quarter is a result of a simple human omission, while a possible D over S mint mark would be a result of a deliberate or accidental repunching, both of which elevate a coin from ordinary to extraordinary. The condition of the coin itself is paramount to its value. A heavily scratched and toned 1982 P quarter, even if it is a no P variety, will not command the same price as a pristine example. The surface preservation is everything. Professional grading companies like PCGS and NGC assess a coin's condition on a 70-point scale. A coin in fine F or very fine VF condition, showing clear signs of wear, will have a relatively modest value, perhaps a few dollars over face value. However, as the grade climbs to about uncirculated AU and then to mint state MS, the value increases exponentially. For instance, a common 1982 P quarter graded MS65 might be worth around $1,200, while an MS67 can fetch $11,525, and a perfect, seemingly impossible MS68 coin is valued at an astounding $138,934. For the elusive 1982 P, no P variety, even a coin with details due to scratches or cleaning can be a four-figure coin, while a mint state example with a straight grade could reach astronomical prices. The world of high-end coin collecting is driven not just by rarity, but by competition, a phenomenon known as registry set competition. Collectors vie to assemble the finest, most complete sets of coins, and they use online registries to showcase their collections. Owning the highest graded example of a specific coin, the finest known, provides immense prestige and drives prices to unprecedented levels at auction. When a coin like a flawless 1982 P, no P quarter appears, one that is the best of its kind, it becomes the center of a bidding war among wealthy collectors looking to secure the top spot in their registry. The value is no longer just about the metal content or the era. It's about the bragging rights, the provenance, and the history of that single, spectacular coin. And yet, beyond the famous no P era and the ubiquitous master die doubling, there exists a shadowy realm of even rarer anomalies that can turn a scratched and toned 1982 P quarter into a numismatic legend, defying the very notion that condition is the sole arbiter of value. Imagine a coin that left the Philadelphia Mint not with a clean, perfectly centered strike, but with a dramatic off-center error, where the design is violently shoved to one side, leaving a blank, crescent-shaped void of raw metal that speaks to a catastrophic misalignment in the coining press. Or picture a quarter that carries a massive die crack, a jagged, raised line of metal snaking across Washington's portrait like a lightning bolt frozen in time, a testament to the immense pressure and stress the dies endured during the wartime production of the early 1980s, when the mint was running at full capacity to meet the demands of a growing economy. Even more tantalizing is the possibility of a transitional era. A theoretical hybrid where a 1982 P quarter might have been struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, or perhaps on a silver planchet left over from the pre-1965 era, a ghost from the past accidentally fed into the hopper, creating a coin that is heavier, sounds different when dropped, and carries a metallic composition that is entirely wrong for its year. While no such transitional 1982 P quarter has been officially documented, the very possibility electrifies the collecting community, reminding us that the mint's production lines are not infallible and that each day of operation presents a small but non-zero chance of producing a one-of-a-kind freak of nature. For a coin like ours, already bearing the scars of circulation and the mellow, uneven patina of natural tunning, the discovery of such a dramatic error would instantly elevate it from a curiosity to a centerpiece of any world-class collection, a coin whose story is written not in its pristine surfaces, but in the dramatic flaws that make it unmistakably, irreplaceably unique. In this realm, the scratches and tunning cease to be detriments and instead become part of the coin's autobiography, a visual record of its journey from a bustling Philadelphia factory floor through the hands of countless Americans, finally arriving in your possession as a battered but historically priceless artifact of a bygone era. In conclusion, a small, seemingly unremarkable 10-cent piece of copper and nickel can metamorphose into a high-value collectible of extraordinary significance through a confluence of factors: a crucial and visually dramatic minting era, a high state of preservation, and the fierce demand from a passionate collecting community. The 1982 P Washington quarter, particularly the no P variety, stands as a powerful testament to this phenomenon. It reminds us that history, art, and human error are intertwined in every coin we hold. So, the next time you receive a quarter in your change, take a moment, look closely at the date and the mint mark, examine the details. You might just be holding a piece of minting history, a small but valuable treasure that defied the odds and survived decades to tell a remarkable story. And thirdly, it is an ordinary afternoon in America. Someone reaches into their pocket for change at a gas station, pulls out a handful of coins, and without a second thought, hands over a quarter that could be worth more than the car they are driving. Not because it is made of gold, not because it is centuries old, but because of a tiny mint mark, a specific year, and a set of circumstances so improbable that the odds of that coin existing in a meaningful condition are almost non-existent. The coin we are examining today is the 1970 D Washington quarter dollar, a coin that over 400 million people walked past, spent, lost, and forgot. And yet, within that mountain of ordinary production, there exists a sliver of specimens that have become some of the most sought-after quarters in modern American numismatics. This is not a story about a coin that was rare from the start. This is a story about a coin that became rare through time, through error, through survival, and through the relentless obsession of collectors who refused to let history slip through their fingers. The year was 1970, and the United States was a nation in motion and in turmoil. The Vietnam War had dragged on for years, and the anti-war movement had reached a fever pitch, culminating in the Kent State shootings in May of that year, an event that fractured the country along generational and political lines. NASA was still reeling from the near disaster of Apollo 13, in which 3 astronauts narrowly survived a catastrophic oxygen tank explosion on their way to the moon. The Environmental Protection Agency was established in December of 1970, signaling a new era of environmental consciousness. The economy was shifting, inflation was creeping upward, and the nation was in the middle of a massive coinage transition. Just 5 years earlier, in 1965, the United States Mint had stripped silver from circulating coinage, replacing the old 90% silver quarters with a new copper-nickel-clad composition. By 1970, the transition was complete, and every quarter rolling off the presses at the Denver Mint was made of a copper core sandwiched between layers of copper-nickel, a composition that would define American coinage for decades to come. The 1970 D Washington quarter was born into this world of change, a product of an era when America was redefining itself on nearly every front. The Washington Quarter series itself had begun in 1932, commissioned to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The design was created by John Flanagan, a sculptor and engraver who was selected through a design competition organized by the Commission of Fine Arts. Flanagan's design was actually a runner-up choice. The originally selected design by Laura Garden Fraser was favored by the commission, but ultimately overruled by the Treasury Department under Secretary Andrew Mellon, in a decision that has been debated by numismatists and art historians ever since. Flanagan's obverse features a left-facing profile of George Washington, modeled after the famous bust sculpted by Jean-Antoine Houdon in 1785, which was itself created from a life mask taken of Washington at Mount Vernon. The portrait is stern, dignified, and classical in its execution, surrounded by the inscriptions "Liberty" at the top, "In God We Trust" to the left, and the year date at the bottom. The reverse depicts a heraldic eagle with wings spread, perched on a bundle of arrows with two olive branches beneath, framed by EPLUBUSUNUM above and United States of America and $quarter below. The design is a study in restrained American iconography, powerful, simple, and instantly recognizable. Flanagan's work would remain on the quarter for over 6 decades, until the state quarter program replaced it in 1999, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in United States history. Now here is where the story takes a turn that most people never consider. The official mintage figure for the 1970 Washington quarter stands at approximately 417 million coins. That is an enormous number by any measure. When most people hear that figure, they immediately assume the coin cannot possibly be rare. And in one sense, they are correct. If you walk into any coin shop in America, you can probably buy a circulated 1970 quarter for exactly 25 cents. But mintage is only the first chapter of the rarity story. What matters far more is the survival rate, how many of those 417 million coins survived in collectible condition. The vast majority entered circulation immediately, were shoved into cash registers, dropped on concrete, rubbed against keys in pockets, chemically altered by human sweat and environmental exposure, and eventually worn down to the point where their details were nearly unrecognizable. Others were lost in couch cushions, buried in backyards, dropped into storm drains, or melted for their metal content during periods when copper and nickel prices spiked. The fraction that survived in mint state condition, never circulated, never touched by human commerce, is vanishingly small, and the fraction that survived in high mint state grades, such as MS65 or above, is smaller still. This is the fundamental paradox of modern coin rarity. A coin can have a mintage in the hundreds of millions and still be extraordinarily rare in top condition. The strike quality of the 1970 quarter is another critical factor that collectors and grading professionals scrutinize with almost forensic intensity. Denver mint quarters from this era are known for a range of strike characteristics, and the 1970 is no exception. Some coins were struck with full, sharp details, every feather on the eagle's wing clearly defined, every strand of Washington's hair distinct, the lettering crisp and bold. Others were struck from worn or misaligned dies, resulting in soft, mushy details that blur the design elements. Collectors use terms like full head to describe quarters where the details of Washington's hair and ear are completely visible and sharply struck, and this designation can dramatically affect value. A 1970 quarter with a weak strike might grade MS63 and be worth a few dollars. The same coin with a razor-sharp, full-detail strike might grade MS66 or higher and be worth hundreds, or in extreme cases, thousands of dollars. The difference is not in the metal, not in the year, not in the mint mark. The difference is in the pressure of the die, the freshness of the hub, the alignment of the planchet, and the exact moment that coin was struck, factors that were never controlled or documented, making each high-grade survivor a kind of lottery ticket from 1970. When we dive deeper into the world of varieties and errors, the 1970 quarter becomes genuinely fascinating. Several recognized varieties exist within this issue, and they are the reason some 1970 quarters have achieved prices that seem almost impossible for a modern clad coin. Among the most notable are minor double die varieties, where the design appears to have a slight shadow or doubling effect, particularly visible in the lettering and date. These occur during the hubbing process, when the master hub is impressed into the working die multiple times, and any slight misalignment between impressions creates a doubled image that is then transferred to every coin struck from that die. There are also repunched mint mark varieties, where the small D mint mark, which was hand-punched into each working die by mint employees, was struck more than once in slightly different positions, creating a visible doubling or shadow effect on the mint mark itself. These hand-punched mint marks are a relic of an older era of minting, before the mint transitioned to directly engraved mint marks in the 1990s, and they represent a human element of imperfection that collectors find irresistible. Die cracks, thin raised lines on the coin's surface caused by stress fractures in the die, are also found on 1970D quarters, and while minor cracks are common, dramatic die cracks that traverse major design elements can add significant collector value. Off-center strikes, where the planchet was not properly aligned with the die, resulting in a portion of the design missing or the coin being struck off-center, are extremely rare for this issue but have been documented and command substantial premiums when discovered. To understand how these errors and varieties occur, it helps to understand the minting process itself. The United States Mint in 1970 operated using a multi-stage production system. First, a master hub was created, a single positive image of the coin's design, engraved by a skilled artist. This master hub was then used to create master dies, which were negative images. The master dies were then used to create working hubs, and the working hubs were used to create the working dies, the actual dies that struck coins on the minting presses. At each stage, the image was transferred, and at each stage, there was room for error. If a working hub was pressed into a working die more than once, and the alignment was off by even a fraction of a millimeter, a doubled die was born. The mint mark was a separate step entirely. A small punch with the letter D was physically hammered into the working die by hand, and if the punch bounced or was repositioned, a repunched mint mark resulted. The dies themselves were subjected to enormous pressure during production. Each strike applied hundreds of tons of force to the planchet, and over time, the dies developed stress fractures, cracks, and chips. A die that had been used for hundreds of thousands of strikes might produce coins with increasingly distorted details, filled-in lettering, and die cracks that grew longer and more dramatic with each successive strike. The mint did not retire dies on a fixed schedule. They were used until they were deemed no longer serviceable, which means that some 1970D quarters were struck from fresh, pristine dies, while others were struck from dies that were on the verge of falling apart. This variability is what makes variety collecting so compelling. Each coin is a snapshot of a specific die at a specific moment in its life cycle. What makes this particularly dramatic is the fact that some of the most valuable 1970D quarters are not pristine, uncirculated specimens at all. They are circulated coins that were spent, passed from hand to hand, and only later discovered to carry a rare variety or error. There are documented cases of collectors finding repunched mint mark varieties and double die varieties in circulation, in bank rolls, and in inherited coin collections, where the coins had been sitting for decades in ordinary folders or jars. These discoveries are the lifeblood of the numismatic community, the thrill of finding something extraordinary in the most ordinary of circumstances. A circulated 1970D quarter with a clear, dramatic repunched mint mark might be worth $50 to $100 in circulated condition. In uncirculated condition, the same variety could be worth several hundred to over $1,000, depending on the grade and the visibility of the variety. In terms of realistic market values, the 1970D Washington quarter spans a remarkably wide range depending on grade, variety, and eye appeal. A circulated example in fine or very fine condition, the kind you might find in pocket change, is worth essentially face value, perhaps 25 to 50 cents to a dealer who needs it for inventory. In about uncirculated condition, where the coin shows only slight wear on the highest points, the value might rise to $1 or $2. In mint state grades, the picture changes dramatically. An MS-63 example might sell for $5 to $10. An MS-64 might bring $15 to $25. An MS-65, a coin with strong luster, minimal contact marks, and good eye appeal, might sell for $50 to $100. But at MS-66 and above, the population drops off a cliff. PCGS and NGC census data shows that the number of 1970D quarters certified at MS66 is relatively small, and at MS67, the population is in the low double digits or fewer. An MS66 might sell for $200 to $500, and an MS67, if one can be found, could potentially sell for $1,000 or more at auction. When you add a recognized variety, such as a repunched mint mark or a doubled die, these values can multiply several times over. So there it is, a 25-cent piece, not silver, not ancient, not from a legendary mint or a storage shipwreck, just a quarter struck in Denver in 1970 from a production run of over 400 million. And yet, under the right circumstances, the right variety, the right grade, the right tunning, the right provenance, that same quarter can become a piece of history worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. The story of the 1970D Washington quarter is the story of American numismatics in miniature. It is a reminder that rarity is not always about how many were made. It is about how many survived in a condition worth preserving. It is about the errors that crept in when human hands touched the dies. It is about the tunning that developed over decades in a drawer, an album, or a bank vault. It is about the collectors who spend years, sometimes lifetimes, searching for that one coin that completes a set, fulfills a dream, or simply captures a moment in time when America was changing and its coinage was changing with it. The next time you receive a quarter in change, take a moment to look at it. Check the date. Check the mint mark. You might just be holding something far more valuable than 25 cents. You might be holding a story, and in the world of rare coins, stories are worth more than gold.